welcome back again. This is Arlene and you're listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. Today in our ASEAN Breakfast Call, we have our guest here. Her name is Elizabeth
Cardosa.
Cardosa. That's a very interesting name.
It's got a story behind it. Yeah.
So today we are going to talk about preserving heritage, and you representing the Badan Warisan Malaysia, which is not a government agency.
No. It's just because it's got the name Badan in it. Yeah.
The role of Badan Warisan Malaysia is supposed to preserve all these interesting and historical heritage sites in all over Malaysia.
Yeah, I think we're an NGO. We are registered as a charity, and we've been around for about 30 years. And our work really focuses on the protection and the promotion of the conservation of the built heritage, the built and cultural heritage. So you don't only look at a building, you look at what happens within a building, you look at the people who built it, you look at, the people who live in it and who interact with it. So it really is, you're talking about living spaces and living heritage in that way. So our work, focuses on trying to promote awareness and to advocate for better practice of that.
So, can you share with us more on the background or how it started for Badan Warisan Malaysia? I mean, this is a very interesting. I mean, to me personally, too bad I just noticed it like recently. But to me, it's very interesting that you all are doing something that is. I don't think there's any NGO is doing. Maybe there is. I don't know. But you are preserving like historical sites in all over this country.
I think that what we're trying to do is to try to raise awareness so that people who own them will protect them. So the real custodians will protect them. But we want to, support those efforts. I mean, you're right, there are not many people involved in this because, that it doesn't resonate the same way as if you say, somebody's sick or somebody's orphaned, because there's a very human factor there. When we're talking about the built heritage or buildings or heritage or old places, people kind of go like, it's like not lah, we don't necessarily recognize it, or we say, it's not maju, that kind of, it doesn't give you that sense of it. But actually, if you think about it, I mean, we all come from something, and our work relates back to that. Where do we come from, and what is that forms our identity and our personality.
And these buildings are part of
our history and part of the character of a place. If you imagine if everything was a tall building, it could look like anywhere in the world. And it's only that when you land in KLIA that it says KLIA, and then you're in Kuala Lumpur. It is. So what makes it distinctive? And by retaining these characters, it also means that you can kind of remember that, last time the technology was like this, and now our technology is like that. And if you think back about something like, if we are looking at Kuala Lumpur, the Sultan Abdul Samad building, it was built in 1895 and 1896 completed. And then you think about the Twin Towers, and that was completed in 1996. And they were both, for their time, mega structures. But the Twin Towers are now 20 years old. Imagine that. What I mean? If you think about it, so it's really old already, and if you think about sort of everything that's modern and the technology that builds new things, smart tunnels and whatever else, if you think of a small Terowong, and then you think of the smart tunnel, you actually sort of understand that, we've kind of moved forward, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse, but it gives us a marker, a point of reference. So our work really is to try to keep that kind of point of reference there, because if it isn't there, then we kind of like are the same as everybody else, and what makes us different.
And your organization started in 1983.
That's
and you
correct.
were trying to preserve one heritage, one hotel called Majestic Hotel, right?
No, one of the things, it began with sort of a group of 11 or 12 people who got together one day and said, the face of Kuala Lumpur is changing. And we really have to do something about it. We want to make a statement. We want to say, let's think back about it. And so we set up Badan Warisan Malaysia as a result of that. Now, at the same time as the setting up was happening, the Majestic Hotel owners, the original owners, wanted to sell it, and so it was going to be sold and then demolished, and the group of people within Badan Warisan said, wait a minute, this is really important. We really shouldn't lose it because it was one of our early hotels. It's quite a big building for Kuala Lumpur. Kuala Lumpur wasn't a very rich, large city,
and
right?
it was built during the 1930s.
And it was built in the 1930s. And so, it was a marker of its time. So a group of the older members got their children really and their younger members to be involved in this raising awareness, and part of the effort to raise awareness was to throw a party, essentially, because young people, we throw parties, right? And so
during your era, I think you have a lot of parties.
Possibly more than now. You go to clubs more, But so so the ball, the Majestic Ball, as it was called, was to raise awareness and to say it's really important to keep, and let's go and have fun and enjoy this place and give this place a new group of people to associate and to have memories of it. And so the Majestic Ball took place, and then there was also a lot of press and media because in Badan Warisan we actually had at that time newspapers, not so much radio, newspapers who were involved in journalists who were involved, in writers and artists, and people just generally got mobilized and said, okay, it's really important, and then lobbied, pressured, made noise in the press, so to speak. Not lobby in the same way that American politics or politicians would lobby, but just to create an awareness. And the Majestic Hotel, thankfully, was then purchased by government so that it would not be
redeveloped into something else.
And then the question then was what to do with the building, and so at that time the National Art Gallery was trying to find a new home, and so they decided to put the National Art Gallery into the building. It isn't necessarily the best fit, but it worked really well for many years.
Is it still a hotel in functioning?
The National Art Gallery then eventually in the late 90s, moved into its own premises, and the YTL Group, YTL Hotels, managed to secure a long lease to convert this back from a hotel into a National Art Gallery, back into a hotel, which is what it originally was for, and then developed on the adjacent site, additional rooms and additional facilities. So what we're doing is 30 years later, the same group of people who did the first party are actually much older,
and they have their own children,
and leading the second party as well. So actually, people who were involved in the event 30 years ago are actually involved in this event, and yes, they're 30 years older, but they have young children who are also involved. So in a way, the story goes on. And we're trying to make this relevant to more than just, an older generation, people who had a memory of it when it was a hotel or a memory of it when it was the National Art Gallery. We want to have people have new memories of it as this hotel, as it is, as a place in KL.
But all over the country, you actually preserve a lot of different heritage sites, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, we are involved in preservation efforts. We're not involved in documentation. We do a lot of documentation.
Can you give examples of places where you have, similar stories like the Majesty Hotel?
Well, one of the early projects that Badan Warisan did was a building in Klang called the Gedung Raja Abdullah. It was a gedung, so it was really a warehouse, and everybody's kind of like going like, "What do you want to go down?" It's not beautiful, it's not big, but it was really important because it related back, apart from relating back to Raja Abdullah, it related back to the economy of the country, which is tin, and so it was a warehouse for tin. And one of the projects that we did was it was again going to be demolished, and so we managed to get the Sultan of Selangor at that time, the late Sultan, to agree to that we could restore the building. And although it was owned by government, an NGO led the effort for restoration. So that was really one of our early projects. Central Market, one of our founder members was involved in the rehabilitation of Central Market. But more recently, I would say that, Stadium Merdeka was one building that we, stepped in to restore.
I have one question on Stadium Merdeka. Would it be demolished?
No.
So it will still be preserved?
Okay. Part of the project for Stadium Merdeka and Stadium Negara was the whole precinct. I know there's a lot of noise in the system about it being demolished. No, they're gazetted. Gazetting means they're listed formally in Parliament, which means you may not destroy the building. So there is, the owners who are PNB have put out that they applied for listing themselves, and government agreed. So although it's a privately owned building, the owners have made sure that the building is going to be protected. So no, the new development is on an adjacent site. And it doesn't actually affect the stadiums per se. I mean, it's one of the things that, we've been, negotiating, making sure.
There's a lot of hoo-ha.
There's a lot of hoo-ha about it being demolished, but it won't be demolished, and it can't be demolished because it would be against the law, really. I mean, not that we don't do things against the law. I mean, lots of people break the law, but, it's something that it is a listed building. So I think that if you're the owner and you've taken the responsibility for getting it formally recognized as a national monument, and the restoration that we did is recognized internationally because we got a UNESCO award for it, I don't think that, so the eyes of the world are kind of on you. I don't think you'll be so irresponsible as to demolish it. So no, I'm going to say no.
Okay. And I'm on your website now. I see a lot of places other than, in Kuala Lumpur and other areas that you preserve.
Yeah.
Is it mainly places that has historical values such as, you stated here Istana Tengku Long and Masjid Merbo?
Yeah. I think we have been working on different kinds of properties. We look at vernacular timber architecture. So there are istana, but we also have Malay houses, traditional houses that we've done from Rumah Kutai, which is literally just a little an old house, which is just a square old house with a roof, and Kalarai walls, which is the woven bamboo walls, and atap roof, so from something which is as modest a structure like that to the bigger palaces, and help relocate. We've helped relocate certain buildings. So Istana Tengku Long was because they were selling the land. We actually helped relocate it, and so that's sort of our project. So we work from timber buildings, and we have one timber building in the middle of the city of Kuala Lumpur, which we bought because again it was going to rot. It was rotting. Basically, the jungle had eaten it.
But isn't it expensive to?
It is. It is expensive on the one hand. If you're counting dollars and cents, and you say, "Do you want to build?" But it really is. If you talk about recycling and preserving, that's what preservation is. What you're doing is, you think about it. If you don't have it and you've lost it, then it's actually priceless. So you can't quantify it in terms of how much is it going to cost. The question really should be, how much is it going to cost you as a community, you as an individual, you as a nation, if it's not there? So imagine if Stadium Merdeka wasn't there. And that's part of, I think, the anxiety of the world, of a lot of Malaysian community, which is why you asked that question, right? It's like the anxiety is, wait a minute, it's really important to us. If it isn't there, what happens? What have we lost? And so can you quantify the loss? Do you say, we have lost X number of, okay, if you had 250 ringgit and you dropped it on the road, you've lost 250 ringgit. That is replaceable. But there are certain things which are irreplaceable. And when they become irreplaceable, then they become invaluable, which means you can't, say this is the amount of money.
But in today's world of capitalism and rapid development, especially in the city area, in the urban area, do you find any challenges where you are in a state where you want to preserve a historical sites, but at the same time, owners of the land or the developers themselves refuse? They say that, why don't we just, completely change?
Lots of examples of that all the time. And because we're an NGO, we can only yell, shout, scream, talk to the media. No, I mean, share, advocate, write letters, not just to the press, but, certainly a lot of our work starts with writing to the authorities and saying, wait a minute, this is important. We collect data, we demonstrate why something is important. And I think it really is, in a sense, sharing and trying to educate, because I think if you quarrel all the time, it gets really noisy and people get really tired. But I think, yes, you're right. I mean, part of the big problem, and it is a big problem, is this whole drive, which is, dollars and cents about economy, whereas this sense of history, the sense of belonging, the sense of identity is not seen as important. But if you think about it, if that's not important, then you become like everyone else. And what makes you distinctive? So why should anybody want to come to visit Malaysia if it looks like, the next country down the road? What is it that gives us a character? Yeah, what is it that gives us our character? So we keep talking about food, but but our food is, you talk about satay, is shared. You know what I mean? We are not the only ones who have satay. We're not the only ones who have nasi lemak. But of course, it's a very, very important part of our culture, which we will all admit to, right? But acknowledge. But it is not the only thing. So sometimes old places give us a character. If you look at the whole of the Padang area in KL, what is it that makes it distinctive? Those buildings around there. Where are you from?
I'm from Kuala Lumpur.
Oh, okay. So if but if you say, to somebody, from Ipoh, they might say, oh, look, it's the area around. Again, there were always sort of prominent places, places where you might go to your school, things that you relate to emotionally. And it may have been a small place, a small town, but you have memories that are linked to that. And the memories are linked to and the buildings and the sites give you a visual, trigger for those memories and those emotions.
And you work a lot in terms of trying to bringing the awareness of preserving. And one of it, you did it last week.
Yes, last weekend.
What was the event?
The event was a Warisan lab. It was it was set within our grounds at Badan Warisan, which is in the center of the city. We have we are fortunate at the moment. We might be kicked out anytime, but we hope not. To be housed in a 1920s bungalow, and next to it we have located a 19 teens. That means it was built around the middle of the 1910s. Malay house, which we moved there, and we also have a garden setting and all of that. And we had a lab, which was a workshop with talks and activities related to trying to stimulate the idea of using technology. But actually understanding culture through technology, so culture became the dominant theme, but technology became the method, the tool within which we then introduced the subject to try to get to a younger audience, an audience who kind of says, oh, we're so used to having our iPhones, we're so used to having our digital cameras, we tweet, we Instagram all the time,
I mean, we talk, when I grow up, from young until now, I found out there's very little cultural connection other than, some institutionalized event. So I think, events like this definitely could enhance our knowledge in terms of the lands that we are staying and also, the cultures that
and what's around us. Yeah, I think what's around us. I think it's really important because we really don't necessarily want to be limited just to ourselves, right? So it really is trying to open it to a wider audience. And so we do this through, the lab uses digital technology. We do education programs with kids who are 5 years old, and we use the Malay house, for example, to introduce, Malay culture, let's say, an understanding of Malay culture to Malays as well as to non-Malays, Partly it's a nostalgia thing, but also it's about values. What are the values behind it? So in terms of the Warisan lab, it's really talking about, you may use this digital technology, but what is the underpinning value? What is the underpinning culture and the content? So we're trying to give content, I think, is what we're looking at. Cultural content, to our lives.
And you also organize a ball this weekend.
Yes.
At Majestic Hotel
That's
again.
correct. Yeah, the Majestic Hotel again. Yes, because 30 years later, like I said, we're doing this ball, which is a fundraising event. We do a fundraising event maybe every 5 or 6 years, 7 years. Quite long pauses in between. We raise funds for the organization, but we also raise funds for certain activities and certain programs that we run. And part of what we're trying to raise funds for in this exercise is to try to develop better technical competence through a grant system. So to get people who are involved in or who want to be involved or who want to do conservation work, but they need some technical knowledge and they don't have it. So to try to develop that side of it. But also we want to communicate better with the young, I think. And so the Warisan Lab was one of our attempts, to do that. And we want to continue that way.
So you have done this before, right? And for this time, you're doing it on the 20th of June.
That's correct. The 20th of June at
7 o'clock at night. Is it open to all?
Yes. I mean, it's by invitation because, as I said, we're an NGO and we're collecting funds. All entries by donation, and the donation is tax exempt. We fully tax exempt. So we have some corporate tables, but we also have individual seats that are available, and people can come. It's not going to be something which is only for old people. We can also have young people there. And so among the entertainment that we have, we start at 7 p.m. in the foyer. Where there will be a mini bazaar, there will be a silent auction, there will be some other activities going on. We have photo wall and with the difference, and then the doors open at 8 and people will go in. And part of the entertainment that evening is we have Sheila Majid who will be singing, but along with Sheila, her daughter Keda, who is a rising rap star, will also be performing. So it really is to say, it's not just about Sheila, who is older. Who, by the way, although I think she has a vague memory of it only, she was a rising star at that time. She wasn't, big and famous at that time. She sang at the first Majestic Ball. I mean, her brother played piano and she just sang, So it was just quite spontaneous. It wasn't a performance. So she's volunteered to come back and to perform. And Keda is coming and performing with her. And along with them is Danger Disco. They are independent DJs who by accident or came across one of Sheila's recordings and did a remix for it for the club. For the club scene. And so we actually have this, where Sheila, what ties them all together is Sheila. But they all have different genres and they're all representing different genres of music. So that's kind of the entertainment. We have guest appearances of MCs, but the guest appearances by Raibina Berry and a good YB Dato. So that they will be, keeping us going as well, plus music, and
you have a supper party? What is that?
So for the people who don't want to go back, we have a supper after party. So the event itself, you will last probably until 2 or 3 o'clock. For those of the few who don't quite want to, they go, okay, right, the weekend is coming up and I can chill a bit. And so that is an additional 50 ringgit, for those who want to stay on. It's limited. The main ball event can take up to about 700 people, but the supper after party is about 70 people. So it's about 10%. We figure 10% might want to stay back. So
if anyone wants to join in, are they still able to join?
Yes. We still have. You can call the office at 03-2144-9273, or you can actually email. It'd be really easy to just email. It's quite easy. Coolball, KUL, as in Kuala Lumpur, right? Always in cool, KULBALL at badanwarisan.org.my.
So looking forward to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time. That was good.
Welcome.